Hello everybody, I'm back with another video for you today, and it's going to be a really cool one. I've got more reveals to show for you today, which were put up on the Gwent YouTube channel and on the website, of course. Links down below if you want to find those yourself. But very exciting, this one. Spies as a mechanic, beloved by a lot of people in terms of, spying units in Nilfgaard. I'm not talking about silver spies from the old days, of course. But Nilfgaard spies as an archetype where you're, playing engines and playing spying units and everything's synergizing with each other and you're using those disloyal units in some way. Well, that's coming back in some forms that we've seen before in terms of stuff similar to Imperial Brigade. But anyway, let's just watch the video now and then I'll give you some thoughts on the new cards, the new evolving Nilfgaard card Usurper, which is looking very, very cool, as well as, of course, some of the other cards that have been revealed. So, let's jump right in.
Let me tell you the tale of an emperor. No, not that fool Fergus var Emrace, the boar. This one, I believe you remember solely as the Usurper.
Introducing the Usurper, an evolving card that gains strength at the start of each round. The card depicts the Usurper's rise from lowly soldier through general, in order finally to become the Emperor of Nilfgaard. The Usurper excels at deploying spies behind enemy lines, and in final form can turn the most stalwart ally into a duplicitous foe. Seditious Aristocrats is one of the many new cards built to synergize with Usurper and flesh out the Nilfgaardian spy archetype. While a soldier at heart, the Usurper and his entourage gladly blur any lines of allegiance to achieve advantage.
So, that's it. There we go. Very, very cool. Let's now jump right into sort of looking at the cards here and what each phase of Usurper does. As you saw there, very interesting in what he can do. So what he's going to be doing is, each round, if you have Devotion, then after the second round and going into the third round, he will level up a third time, but otherwise he'll always level up after round one until, I say level up, he'll evolve into this kind of greater version of himself. The difference being the first Usurper here can spawn an operative in the enemy row. Those are the 3 strength spying units that you saw in the trailer there. He can spawn one of those on the opposite enemy row, and the kind of upgraded version, so in round 2 or 3, he can spawn 2 of those, 1 on each row. So he's going to become a little bit stronger by effectively 3 points or more if you've got spy synergy going on. And then he can level up once again if you have Devotion, as you see here, Devotion at the start of the round while in hand or deck transform. So that means there's a bit of flexibility. You don't have to play him in a Nilfgaard card only deck, but if you do, you're going to gain an extra little bonus, which is for him to level up into Usurper Emperor, where he has Veil, makes him untargetable by statuses, poison, lock, etc. So you're going to have to only kill him with damage, really. That's going to be the one way to deal with that threat. And he also is able to be boosted whenever you play an agent. So, what is his regular ability? Well, his regular ability is spawning these operators with Zeal and Order, so whenever you want, even as soon as you play him, you can pull those operators back onto your side of the board, effectively making him a 9 for 11 in his first stage, a 12 for 11 in his second stage, and then a 12 for 11 with Veil, plus this ability to be boosted by 1 whenever you play an agent in his final stage. So that's probably going to be very, very powerful, right? 12 for 11 is already quite good, and if you factor into, account the fact that you might have even more operatives on the enemy board, maybe there are more units. I think in the trailer you saw 4 operatives being taken by the Usurper, so maybe there are more cards that will be able to, spawn operator, or even you can just play an operator as a bronze card maybe. So, there's potentially more value to be gained from stealing back the operators, or the operatives, I should say. So there's not only that, but also by giving the opponent a couple of spying units, you might be giving more value to other cards. For example, the, Seditious Aristocrats, which is another card you saw there. We'll get into talking about that in a second, but effectively this is acting in the same way that old Imperial Brigade was. So now we have Imperial Enforcers still in the game, and of course Imperial Brigades effectively coming back, making the old archetype a bit more, a bit closer to the old spy archetype we now have in this Homecoming version. So that's very interesting. But yeah, this seems potentially very powerful. Of course, you're going to maybe want to try to bleed a deck that you think is running this card because it won't have leveled up fully. So some very interesting, gameplay and decisions that you're going to have to make against and with these kind of decks. And definitely working with the theme of Spies, which is probably going to be having quite a strong long round, with a Usurper Emperor. And you're going to try to get that and get all your spying synergies off with that. I'm very excited for this. It works kind of like a similar way to how old Calvite worked. He could take spying units from the opponent's board and put them on your board instead. So that was a very fun ability to use back in the day. Created some really crazy point swings and very exciting situations, and I think Usurper will be doing a very similar sort of thing here. And I'm excited to see what other spying synergies there are going to be, new spying units, potentially to make this Usurper even stronger than it already seems. So let's talk quickly about Seditious Aristocrats. 3 for 5, so pretty weak, stat line there. You typically want 7 points for 5, kind of as a good amount, maybe 6 for 5 as a minimum. But, of course, this unit is getting boosted whenever you play a spying unit. It gets boosted by 1. And you can deploy it with Devotion. If your whole deck is Nilfgaard cards only, then it will immediately boost itself by 1 for every spying unit. So you can imagine you might want to play a Nilfgaard only card deck with Devotion on Seditious Aristocrats and on the Usurper to get kind of that maximum spying unit value and the Veil and everything going well with sort of agents and stuff like that. So there'll be some really interesting deck building opportunities there. Interestingly, you don't need the Devotion to still get Aristocrat value. It will just be required that you play this kind of much earlier in the round before you develop your Spies. So it could be very vulnerable to dying and stuff like that. So probably going to want to play it in a Devotion deck, but there's definitely options there. So this will give a lot of support to the idea of playing a lot of disloyal spying units, maybe emissaries, maybe other things here and there. Maybe there'll be a few new cards, maybe operatives are going to have some kind of effect if you play them from hand, or maybe they'll be spawned by other units. So going to be some more spying options, and that's really exciting because I think a lot of people really liked the Spies archetype back in the day, myself included. I think it was very high skill cap, very strong as well, but a lot of thinking required to play it, and I think the same can be said of Spies that are now coming back into the game. So we've already got, the Angry Mob as well to synergize, so I'm imagining a lot of the Nilfgaard cards here are going to be focused on Spy synergy, which is really nice to see. In past expansions, we had a bit of a messy kind of, each faction, they weren't really sure exactly what direction they wanted to take. You had assimilate being introduced for Nilfgaard, and, all these different new keywords, which were being kind of put all over the place. A bit of poison here, a bit of assimilate there, a bit of bleeding and stuff. But here we're looking like we're getting some really fleshed out spying synergy going on. So that's really promising, and I'm excited to see what the other factions have that can be quite, whole, all-rounded and inclusive in terms of one archetype that's being promoted here. So hopefully that'll be the case for the other factions as well, but definitely for Nilfgaard it's looking very cool so far. And finally there's one more card that we had revealed, which is Will of the Wisp. And this is Destroy a Doomed Unit. Pretty straightforward, just a special card for 5 provisions. So kind of weaker than a lot of the poison cards, for example, right? Since you don't get any body and it's 5 provisions, so that's quite expensive. You can imagine this can get some pretty good value if you are able to easily set up the, getting doomed on units, maybe with the Fortune Teller, for example, or with Gaunter Dim as he currently exists in the game. There are definitely some ways to give doom to things, as we're seeing now, and this can be a tech against units that are already doomed, like maybe Savola's Frightener from Savola, or even I guess Arnulf, the leader. There's some other things that are doomed, some weaker units, but really you're going to have to try to set this up to get a lot of value from it, otherwise it will be quite mediocre. I would imagine this card won't be that good, probably, unless you're playing some kind of heavy Doom synergy deck, if there's a lot more Doom synergy. But right now it just seems like probably playing, poison and stuff like that is going to be a bit better, because you're getting points with the units that give poison rather than just playing a special card to give poison. But we'll see. You can definitely kind of outplay Veil with Will of the Wisp, and with the Doomed status you can give a unit Doomed. They can't then Veil the Doomed status because you can still destroy it with Will of the Wisp. So there's some very interesting kind of going underneath the opponent's strategy, some kind of counterplay to different things. I really like that, you know, in terms of there being certain options that might be good against one thing but not so useful against another, and you know, the pros and cons. Maybe Will of the Wisp is a bit easier to make work if Veil is very popular, but you get less points for it than you would with Poison. So very excited to see whether Doomed will be any good. I think it will probably be overshadowed a little bit by Poison generally, but if Veil becomes very popular, then, you know, maybe Doomed will end up being a nice way to destroy units. So that's all very interesting. I'm sure there'll be more kind of Doomed synergies and cards coming, maybe neutrals, maybe faction specifics as well. So that'll be quite exciting. Worth noting, Wandering Treants are Doomed, potentially with Symbiosis being a keyword for Squirtle. Those could get to be quite big, so maybe that's a counter there as well to think about. Or not so much a counter, but some kind of answer, and some kind of, you know, you'll be stronger against, you know, Squirtle if they're doing Symbiosis and stuff if you're playing Doomed synergies. But yeah, that's the new cards we've got so far. I'll be covering any new ones that come in the coming days, of course, guys, so make sure you subscribe if you're interested in hearing my thoughts on them and whether I think the stuff will be strong, and just how I feel about the new cards in general. I'm excited for these, you know, I think these are the evolving cards, right? The Syndicate one will be coming in a few days' time. Northern Realms, Skellige Monsters, very exciting stuff. I really wonder what the Monsters one will be. That one I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, very cool stuff so far. Excited for this expansion. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.